Karine Jean-Pierre, this is such a bad answer that I don't even understand. Did she get lost in her notes, or did someone accidentally print out a page of their talking points from November? Because this was an incredible moment during the White House briefing the other day, speaking and responding, I should say, to a question from a reporter about how Arab and Muslim leaders have declined to meet with the Biden administration this week, and what the Biden administration's plan is to speak to the pain that Muslim and Arab Americans are facing or experiencing when they see how thoroughly the Biden administration has dehumanized them, and how little they care about Palestinian life. And it's also interesting, too, because what's additionally frustrating about the construction, even of this question, the question's good, but in the way that the White House views it, when Biden did that interview with NBC a week or two ago, he seems to be under the impression that the uncommitted vote is being led exclusively by Arab or Muslim Americans or Palestinian Americans who have lost people and who have been killed by Israel. And that's 100% not the case. It's in many ways instances student activists, younger people, just leftists, people who are progressive and who want to stand against a genocide. So I wish that the scope of their understanding was even broader than the confines of this question, but you'll even see here how ill-equipped the White House spokeswoman is to handle this, and she does so in a really offensive manner.
Majority of Palestinian American, Arab American, and Muslim organizations that the White House reached out to for a meeting this week rejected the invitation. So what is the White House strategy on this, and are there plans for the president to directly engage with these communities?
So, look, the president, as you know, has had an opportunity to meet with members of that community not too long ago, leaders of that community, the Arab American community, the Muslim American community.
She just said that.
Not too long ago. And so, look, what I will say is we understand that this is a difficult time, that this is a painful time. We understand that the events of October 7th that killed more than 1,200 souls, right? Took more than 1,200 souls in Israel, and also took Hamas, the terrorist organization, also, as we know, took hostage more than 200 people. And what that led to, that war that led to, is incredibly painful. We understand that. And so, look, we're going to continue to, as you know, the president, senior officials from the White House met with members of those communities in Illinois just yesterday, and we're going to continue to have those regular meetings to hear directly from them, and the president believes that's important to do, to hear from those voices.
I get it that you stand up there and you kind of know that you're lying. You know that you're not gesturing towards the 40,000 plus Palestinians that have been killed so far in this genocide, because we haven't had updated numbers for weeks. 31,000 is what Western outlets are reporting, but that's all they can confirm. Euromed Monitor and other groups would say it's 40,000 at minimum, basically, when they count those who have been dead under rubble for weeks. She understands basically that she has to go up there and lie and eat shit, and that's part of what these State Department people and White House spokespeople do, and then they lie in the hopes that they'll get elevated to something. Like Jen Psaki, hey, she got an MSNBC gig out of it. But Karine Jean-Pierre is so bad at this that I saw Ryan Grimm make this point. I don't know if she will get one out of this, because I don't know how you can look at that and think that she's even an effective liar for the Biden administration. That was a shockingly callous response.
I don't mean to be super callous, but it sounds like she's having a stroke. The two different answers of appealing to the Muslim community and then just rattling off the stats of October 7th. One does not have anything to do with the other.
Right.
I think also that's a new descriptor, right? I don't think I've heard any side yet described as souls. Mm-hmm. And one side is not, the other side is not mentioned at all by her. I don't know, you're onto something here, though. It's not just how she, like what she said, even how she said it. It was like her overall demeanor, like it gives off like those like like when you that old like Twitter personality from like 2015 2016, like the snarky lib, like the sort of like, oh, I don't care, I'm above the fray or whatever, like like this callousness, this like I'm carefree,
What, she's Brooklyn dad defiant or something?
Not interested in what you're saying. Like she had this weird affect about her too, just like not even like she was looking down, looking away, like she couldn't be bothered to be there.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I think it goes back to your point previously before you put the video on, Emma, in the sense that like by constantly repeating that this is somehow the domain of the American or foreign Arab community, they're just trying to like ethnicize the problem, make it seem contained and not a big deal to anyone outside that community in terms of like the material consequences, but that people outside that community are not ultimately concerned with what's happening to it. So it's just made to make it seem like it's just a small problem that is, ethnic and based, ethnic and basis. That way
it
people
sounds
can
like
tune
Nixon
out.
talking about Polish voters in the 70s, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an excuse for people to tune out from the problem because it's not one that's based in, if you're being unkind, like modern material, like issues like Trump winning. It's just a problem that's affecting like a religious minority group. I think it's a very subtle way of kind of dismissing a problem as being like, not worthy of broad concern.
I mean, it's the same construction that, we were just speaking to our guest about the conflict in Congo and how people in the global South are often depoliticized in the language that's used in the West. When we talk about the actions, say, of the Houthis in response, where they're explicitly saying we are blockading and attacking these ships because we are trying to support the Palestinian people by using our what we can do in Yemen, as we're nearby the genocide here, we're blockading the ships in support of the Palestinian people, and we're telling you what our intentions are. And what does the West say? Oh, they're terrorist groups. Oh, we're going to just bomb them. As opposed to say, like, what the kinds of the kinds of responses that we would have if a nation in Europe took a similar action. Arab people within the American context are constantly portrayed in subtle and not subtle ways as either barbarians or too emotional to be taken seriously. And so when you hear like all this active language about the poor souls on October 7th and no mention of the, again, now tens of thousands of Palestinians who have been killed in this genocide, it just by omission, you're portraying them as animals. And then when the language is used, they're portrayed as irrational, basically terrorists.
Yeah,
it's really, really sick.
And you see, I mean, this is just a sickness that's throughout our culture. I mean, it's not like Glazer making the righteous statement about the zone of interest and Hollywood freaking out about it.
Which was,
if you actually look at Hollywood, if you look at the history of Hollywood portrayals of Muslims, it is, if you want a role as a Arab actor, be a terrorist.
Watch
be
24
some kind of extremist.
or Homeland.
Like it's one of the most extreme biases evident in media in the last like 20 years. It's just not like a majority of roles are like these sorts of roles.
I mean, how many World War II movies do we have about like the righteous Americans as well? I mean, when the West is militant, it's this like incredible romanticism, but when other countries or people with darker skin tones are, it's either gang violence or terrorism, right? So
Well, even like Western revolutions, let's take the American Revolution, for example, is always presented as a rational response to a series of injustices that have been done to them by oppressors, which they're, willing to lay out in a list for you, like, no taxation without representation, every man who owns property has a right to vote. They're willing to lay out those issues. And so part of what this entire colonial project has been is making, native populations seem as though their desires and needs are irrational, rooted in religiosity or spiritualism. You could even see that in the way the No DAPL pipeline protesters were characterized in the news. It was never about their land being literally poisoned by oil spills, which happen all the time. They were only really or primarily talked about as though they were having primarily spiritual concerns about the land being sacred, and therefore, which is their right as well to make this land sacred and it's ours. You shouldn't poison it. But it's just a way of dismissing their concerns as being ones that are anti-modernity. Even though, in a lot of cases, Israel is the irrational aggressor, and the Gazans have been calling for ceasefires. The people supporting Gazans have been supporting a ceasefire. They didn't even show South Africa's case against Israel in the ICJ on some channels because they wanted to, hide how well reasoned and rational that case is, but showed their rebuttal. It's like a concerted effort to make it seem as though the people who are being oppressed are in some ways deserving of oppression by not getting with the current age, or just, barbarians, like you said.
it's an incredible point, Brandon. It was really well said, and so true. I hadn't even made that DAPL connection because that was, I'd gone to the when I was with TYT, that was one of my the early gigs there, was covering that and going to North Dakota for that. And that was exactly the case. And then even if you want to look at it historically, say the United States was, or maybe that's not a good example. What other Western country would abide by an influx of a population to create a state in the territory of a Western country based on a religion, in the way that the influx of migration to historic Palestine to create Israel happened, right? And the Arab population at the time in the West is portrayed as completely unreasonable for not abiding by or not accepting the partition plans that would seize a ton of their land and give it to Israel. And yet that is not how that would ever be framed if the context were the wealthy white nations where their land was being seized for or taken for a different purpose for people immigrating there. I mean, look at how we respond to migrants on our border. Are we kidding?
Yeah, but we're seeing the reaction that people would have right now, and this is a group of people who are coming here to become part of the country, to take part in what we have here. They're not even looking to claim it as theirs and theirs alone. They're looking to be part of what we have here, and we treat. I just saw the right wing disgusted by the fact that the Second Amendment also covers them.
Yeah.
When a judge in Texas said that undocumented immigrants have the same rights to gun access as American citizens. Inalienable rights, right? Inalienable rights. Gun control is bad. Wait a minute. What are we doing letting these people come in here to our country have guns? You see the double standard. You see how they act. We don't have to imagine very hard.
Right.
Well, also fascistically, a lot of them actually believe that might makes right. A lot of them, when you press them, will tell you that the reason why America is different or Israel is different or any sort of modern state that is the result of a colonial project like Australia or South Africa is different is because they were able to hold the land. They were able to dominate totally that society that lived there, maybe wipe them out entirely, through one mechanism or another, and they still have control of that land to that day. And I think that is obvious by the way they talk about these projects, and also in the way that they are incredibly defensive about their own borders, in the sense that they are concerned with being dominated by another outside culture, as though that is inherently a negative thing, because they, the nonviolent migration of people from the global south to the global north as a result of the global north's own neo-imperialist projects like the drug war is enough to constitute like a white genocide just by nature of like normal culture and genetic drift, because for them, like that's what, for them, that's what founded their country, and that's what they ultimately believe is every group's goal. And if they were able to do it, then it would be legitimate. But obviously, most people aren't trying to move to America in order to take it over or in order to dominate it outright. They're just moving there because, that's where the flow of capital is going. And so I think that their obsession with the Second Amendment is a result of ultimately feeling that if somebody, whether it's the police state or like an immigrant population, were able to dominate them, that maybe they deserve it. I mean, maybe Freud was right. Who can say?